All right, welcome everybody. And as you come in, I want to express our appreciation for having you in our community here at East West Health. We believe that health is central to everything in your life. And so if we can share some messages and give you insights to shortcut that process and help you live a fuller, happier life, we've done our job. And today we've got a really special guest, a good friend of mine. I've been working with him since he was very young. And so you do not want to miss today's show. Make sure you share this with anyone who's got kids who want to play football or want to be better athletes or really want to work on their mindset. And I'll introduce him in just a minute. But last night in our Health Accelerator Challenge and course, we talked a lot about, we built on this overall foundation of balance and coordination and agility. And so I'm really excited to have our guest on today because he's someone who is no stranger to incredible, he's a professional athlete. He's got incredible agility, incredible balance, and world-class coordination. So you guys will learn from the best. But last night, we talked about the fact that if you can't balance on one foot for more than 20 seconds, and you could before, then there's a chance that you're putting your body's at risk for stroke. So make sure you test yourself. And if you missed it last night, find a place, pick an object in the distance to look at and lift one leg up and time yourself. If you're in the fittest category, you'll be able to do that for over a minute and there shouldn't be any problems. But for some of you, if you can't go more than 20 seconds, make sure you get that looked into and give us a call at the office. We can help you there. Contact your primary care, but it's really important. And then the challenge we gave you last night is to find some things that actually push your balance and push your coordination. Maybe get into a yoga class, do Pilates. My wife is a Pilates instructor, and she will burn out your muscles faster than probably anything I've ever seen. But do something to challenge your balance. And then, we also talked about really replenishing your kidneys, that essence of life. And so look at the Big Dipper at night, get out in the stars, and just really get connected to your life's destiny and purpose. So that was our Health Accelerator Challenge from last night. And so without further ado, I want to introduce the one and only Luke Falk. Luke, it's so good to have you on the podcast today, and we have a long relationship. But maybe in my introduction, I kind of just briefly described your background, but give us some highlights of your football career first of all. NFL quarterback. That's what percentage of quarterbacks actually make it to the NFL, and then maybe you can give us an overview about what we're going to be chatting about today.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me on. And I got to thank you for, playing a big role in that career. As we were just talking about, I was supposed to have shoulder surgery when I was in high school. I went to a guy named Dr. Andrews, who's one of the top guys in the country. And Regan said, no, let me take care of this real quick. And through the work that we did, I didn't have to have shoulder surgery. I never had any issues with my shoulder after that. But a little bit about me, I went and walked on at Washington State for Coach Mike Leach. For any football people out there, they'll know who he is. And then I was fortunate enough to earn a scholarship there and then go on to have a pretty decent career, becoming the all-time Pac-12 passing leader in yards and touchdowns. And then my favorite stat is the all-time wins leader at Washington State. And then was fortunate enough to get drafted to the Titans. I played for the Dolphins and I played for the Jets. And then my biggest idol and one of my biggest goals of all time, people always said, because I was in the AFC East for people that are football people, and Tom Brady was playing for the Patriots. I said, hey, have you met him after a game? I said, no, I'm going to meet him after I play him. And lo and behold, my first career start was against Tom Brady. Now we got our butts kicked, and I probably would have liked to play the Jaguars or somebody like that, but it was pretty fun. So that's a little bit about me. My football playing career, that's come to an end. And now I'm in the coaching world. I'm passionate about that. I got into private coaching last year and really started a company now that we focus on training youth football players online. It's access to everywhere, and then also too, for me, why I wanted to get into is mentors, coaches. Those have been the biggest people for me in my life. I wanted to be able to give that to a kid. And And really, what we do, what we design our program to do, is focus on the mindset portion. I don't think it's
Yeah.
focused on enough at the young age. I was fortunate enough to talk to a guy named Dr. Craig Manning my senior year of high school, and he changed my life. He's a sports psychologist, and the principles that we used and the material that he got me to read, the self-help things. I know you talk about it all the time, but these kids, they just don't learn it in school. They don't learn it in youth football. They don't learn it in high school football, and rarely do they learn it in college or the pros. You have to really outsource it. And unfortunately, um, it's kind of the haves and the have-nots of who can afford that type of stuff. And what we wanted to do is be able to provide that for everyone. So
Right.
I'm pretty fired up about it.
Well, and the reason I wanted to talk to you about this too, because you're a superpower. Because I want, Luke and I have been working together. You're probably 10 when you first came in. I mean, Luke is now at least a foot taller than me and much stronger and everything. But when we started working together, I was actually bigger than him. So, so that will tell you. But the thing that I noticed as I watched you in your career, and especially at Washington State, when you'd be interviewed after the game, just a phenomenal college career, especially in NFL. It was no different when you were interviewed there, but the press was always trying to get you to throw someone under the bus, either your coach or another player, or blame the other team. The thing that I always noticed about you is you never seem to get rattled. And that's like one of the most important traits that I think, not just for football. And so this is where the mindsets of sports, you can take that into your day-to-day life. And so what is it that allowed you to take some significant heat, and you could have easily, you know, passed the buck on to someone else and blamed other players, but what is it that kept you from being rattled?
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest things that we worked on when I worked with Dr. Craig Manning was focus on things that I can control and leaving the rest behind. I could focus on the things that I had absolute control of, which was my play, what I said, how I thought, and every all the opinions that people had of me, just leave that at the door. And then another thing that we talked about, just given being in the quarterback position, is after a loss, hey, I need to be better. I need to focus on what I need to do. After a win, hey, we did a great job. So it was I after a game, we after a win, or I after a loss, we after a win. And that's kind of the mentality that you have as a quarterback, and really in life too. I mean, if you're trying to blame people, you're never going to look in the mirror and say, hey, what could I have done better? And then therefore, all that other stuff's out of your control. So if you look in the mirror and say, hey, I could have really focused and done that better, then you're always constantly improving.
Man,
So
I
I think
love that.
that's, yeah.
I after a loss. So everyone write this down. This is so important because yeah, when something doesn't go right in your life, use I and say, okay, what could I have done differently? How could I have handled this situation? If I could go back and do it again, what would I do differently? And then we after a win. So when things are going great, make sure that you're looking around you and seeing who made that possible. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because, especially in football, the offensive line, they don't get enough credit. They don't get credit at all. The only time people recognize them is if they have a penalty. So it's like after a game, hey, my job's not possible without those guys. So if we did a good job, it's all because of them, and the receivers run the right routes. What I love about football, I think in basketball, a guy can take over the game one on one, but in football, you need all 11 guys on the same page in order to make a play work. So it truly is we. And then, in a loss, obviously, just from being a quarterback, it's, hey, I could be a lot better. And one of the things I love too, and I'm sure you do it, is Craig taught me a thing called 3-to-1, which is try to build upon positive intelligence. Most of the time after games, people go, oh, I could have done this better. And they just rip themselves apart, and they don't even focus on the things that they actually did well. So after each game, win or loss, I focused on the things that I could control and said, hey, I did these three things really well. I had great communication. My body language was really good. I had a great can-do mindset. And then maybe one thing to work on is, hey, ball placement or something like that. So it's, hey, I'm focused on my 3 wins. I'm going to build upon those. And then the one thing that I could do better, that's the thing that I'm going to learn and try to grow.
I love that. So, one of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, he's got this concept, the gap and the gain. And if you haven't read that book, I'd certainly recommend it. Have you heard of this concept, Luke?
I haven't, but maybe my dad's used it because he's a Dan Sullivan guy too.
He's a big Dan Sullivan fan, and we got to get you in that community. Just there's some amazing people, but the gap is where we get stuck when we see here's the ideal of what the outcome of the game, what we wanted it to be, right? And here's where we are, because you're always below the ideal. I mean, even if you win a Super Bowl, it's like, well, the next year you restart and you've got to start that thinking all over again. But you know, from what you're saying, is so many people, it's the positive intelligence that's lacking, because we get stuck in the gap where we weren't ideal, and we're never ideal. That's the human condition. Is you're always going to have a better performance that you can visualize and dream about, but we forget to look back behind us and say, wow, you did a lot of things really darn amazing. And so I love that concept. So it seems
Yeah.
like, would you say Dr. Manning was probably your most influential mentor?
I would say from the mindset portion, absolutely. Him and my dad. I was
Mm.
fortunate enough that my dad was trying to teach me these principles, but I'm sure you experience the same thing with your kids. It goes in one ear and out the other. So when I
Right.
had him, Dr. Manning, I was at a point where I had created a lot of negative mental habits. And I think a lot of people do this. When I work with a quarterback, I'm really breaking down the physical, kind of the bad habits that he learned from a young age, and then we're repiecing them together. I think the same thing happens with the mind. I think you learn these negative things when you're younger, self-talk, confidence, all this. I wasn't comfortable in my own skin, and Dr. Manning helped me be able to get comfortable with myself, which then allowed me to be a more confident player on the field. And it was just through, it's like no different than working out. It didn't happen overnight. I had to constantly work at it. And I worked with him for 7 or 8 years, and still felt like I could constantly improve. And that's what I'm trying to do each day. But absolutely. And that's kind of what we're trying to bring to these young kids is, why don't we start them young? It's just like learning a language, right? The kids
Yeah.
that start when they're younger, they learn it a lot easier. It's no different. The mindset is its own language. And anyways,
Well, and maybe two things. One is maybe there's an experience that you can remember where, you know, maybe your mindset wasn't where you wanted to be in your football career. I mean, because I'd imagine there's going to be a lot of kids that, you know, you parents, and we have a lot of grandparents on here too that have kids who are aspiring football players. I know as a child, I just always imagined like being in the NFL, running that you know, touchdown, and my dream didn't come true. You're one of the few that it did, which is phenomenal. But but maybe you could take us through a time where your mindset wasn't like where you just felt like quitting and giving up. Because I know the career in the NFL is very competitive, not easy. Even in college, I mean, you had to really fight just to get on the team, and then, you know, you just accelerated and went right to the top of the pack. And so literally the Pac 12. So but
no pun intended.
no pun intended, but
Yeah.
tell us about kind of a moment, and then I want to walk through some of the principles that you would teach the kids as if they're listening right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, first thing I do is I always ask people, I say, hey, think of your best performance, whatever it is. I don't know if we got a bunch of sports people on, but think about that. And then think about maybe your worst performance. And
Mm,
did it have anything to do with anything physical? The answer is probably no. It had to do with your mindset. And for me, in the same season, we played UCLA, and I had one of my career games. I'm in the right headspace. I'm focusing on my process, my skills. The biggest thing that we teach in sport is to focus on the things you control, right? If you're too caught up in outcome oriented, you don't have direct control of that, right? So I was process oriented that day. I'm playing well. I was calm, cool, and collected. And the outcome is that with 7 seconds left, we go on and beat UCLA in the Rose Bowl. Okay, flash, then go back to I play the University of Washington. Okay, it's our rival. I'm focused so much on the outcome, what people are going to think of me, what's it going to mean to my legacy, how am I going to be standing in the college football thing, and the Heisman. I let all that external, the things that I couldn't control, get caught up in my game. So therefore, my anxiety increased and my
mm,
performance decreased. I had a really terrible game. I think that just goes to show with the mindset, and that's after I had this opportunity to work with Craig Manning. And what we just came back to is, hey, the mind is something you got to work and apply daily. It's not just because I did it one day. Oh, that means I'm guaranteed to do it the other. You can't just mail it in. You got to really focus on the process. You got to focus on what makes you successful, and keep that. Doesn't matter the situation. So
wow.
those are kind of the examples. of, I guess, good mindset, bad mindset. And then I would say from just an adversity standpoint, I think everything you do, you got to push through some adversity. You've done it with business. Those that persist, those that stick with it. There's an old saying, I think, at the university: those that stay will become champions. And I've always liked that. I heard it from Tom Brady. When I walked down at Washington State, I was the seventh on the depth chart. I called mom and dad. I said, I made a mistake. I don't think I should be here. Like, I'm no coaches, no coaches acknowledging me. I can't even eat with the team because I'm a walk on. All these things. It's new. It's different. And then I thankfully had Craig as a great mentor for me. Hey, we're going to constantly just focus on things we control, showing up each and every day. And we found a process for me that worked. And eventually, a year later, I was put on scholarship. And then 4 months later, I'm playing the University of Southern California. And then I never turned back. I never turned the keys over. So it's just getting through those dark times. And if you continue to put your head down and work on the right things, I think a lot of people work on the wrong things, and they just stay busy to be busy, and they don't really get anything. But it's the quality of effort and keep showing up. That's the magic pill right there.
Man, and you had an opportunity. I mean, the main quarterback, Washington State, had a great quarterback that you were, kind of second string to, and then, an injury happened, and you had a chance to really shine and show what you're made of, and you could have just flopped right there. But I love the idea of just hey, let's focus on the process and what you're good at, because you're a different quarterback than like Russell Wilson, right? Like, he's someone
Right.
who's like, he likes to run the ball, he's fast. You're a quarterback that's more like Joe Montana, like very calculated. You stay in the pocket, you're very calm and collected, but man, your accuracy was just incredible. and
Well,
and so, and I look at that as more mindset, and then you can see it in your interviews afterwards too, just the way that you kept the team nice and calm and collected, leadership capability that most people don't have. And in
well,
running your blood work, we've seen that you have the leadership hormones that are very abundant in, most dudes would just dream to have your natural levels. So
we
so
got to
well
work on
done.
some of the other stuff, the insulin resistance and all that. That's what I was
There's
going to say. What I would love to do is get you on our podcast, because you know when these young kids, if they could learn how to eat proper and take care of their body at a young age, I think that was one of the biggest things I struggled with playing. Is just one, you have a lot of influences too, right? You have a nutritionist at Washington State, and they're using the My Plate thing. It's like, hey, we want you to
so
load up on carbs. Yeah, and you go after practice, and they say, hey, you know what? We need a carb count here, and make sure you're eating your French toast with maple syrup. And it's like, and then I've got you on the other ear, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try to do this, but here's the food that's being provided, and so I just think the whole system's got to get a facelift. And I don't know if you read any of Tom Brady's stuff, but I'm pretty sure it's all the things that you preached. And he's
yeah.
45 freaking years old, and he looks a lot better than me right now, and probably in better shape.
Yeah, the dude's a beast, and if you look at his principles, yeah, it's not much different than what we advocate. We were real big on the bulletproof diet with you, and making
Yeah.
sure you got the healthy fats, the healthy proteins in, limiting carbohydrates to the evening, getting good resistant starches, and so I think that would be amazing. I'd be more than happy to contribute to your community. I mean, on the nutrition side, because I agree, it's the foundation for life. You have all this growth, and your hormones are optimized when you're young. And when I'd see Marshawn Lynch, when he'd score a touchdown, he's eating Skittles, and I was like,
Right.
that is like not the message we want to have for kids. I mean, and I love it. I love the fact that he like gave his shoes to someone when he's at McDonald's. But I'm like, what are you doing at McDonald's? You're a professional athlete. Like, that's so
Right.
risky.
It's too bad though, because I think most of those guys eat that way. There's a certain few that get to that point, and they know that they got to take care of their body that way, and it starts with nutrition. But a lot of the football players, we got bad habits when it comes to eating food, and people think that, hey, you guys are really on top of what you're doing nutrition wise. No, I think a lot of people, they would be shocked at what athletes eat. And the top athletes like the Tom Brady, obviously those guys are paying real attention to what's going in, and because it's a direct correlation to how you feel. And
Right.
anyways, I think the mental health of our society would be better if people learned how to eat properly. Because I know for me, when I eat poor, I'm more jittery. I'm more on edge. I'm not the calm, cool, collected guy I like to be.
Yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to, we'll just use Skittles, and I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, Mr. Lynch, if you hear this, but, but like, if you look at what happens to kids when they eat candy and sweets, and I actually work with a lot of kids. I'll run their blood labs. There's two markers you want to look at, parents, but look at phosphorus. If phosphorus levels are low, if phosphorus levels are high, that's the energy drinks, that's the Cheetos, that's the artificial colors, sweeteners, and that's what Skittles is. Those, the nice bright orange and pink and red and whatever colors there are. That's the stuff that causes neural inflammation. And so if you're working with your kids in sports, and to Luke's point, I think the biggest thing is mindset. And I think that's anything in life. But if your brain's on fire and you can't control it because you're not getting the right nutrients, you're essentially just bailing water out at the bottom of your boat. You may as well just not let the water get in there in the first place. And so maybe, maybe with that, we could talk about, what it would look like for an aspiring young male or female. Do you have females in your program too?
You know what? Currently, we say males because football. There's not many women's league out there, and kind of I think our mission statement is what we got. It says creating confidence and community within young men. I think we'll get something with women down the road, but football in particular, I wouldn't want my daughter playing football. I think it's a sport for males, and it's physical and all that stuff. I wouldn't want. I got to say this though. When I was in Little League, there was this female running back from West Point, and she kicked our butts. And anyway, so I'm not saying it's not for women, but I think it's more geared towards young men and the experiences, the challenges that they're going to be going through, not only on the field but off the field. So it's coming from the perspective of me, and I obviously don't have the female perspective right now. Maybe I could get my wife to come in and help me because she was an athlete as well.
Yeah, there you go. And congrats on your marriage, by the way.
Thank you. That's my biggest win of all time, right there.
That is your biggest win. We
out.
should probably take a minute and just maybe you could kind of share with everyone just your recent wedding, how it went.
Yeah. I just got married, so if anybody has any tips, the one I've been hearing constantly is that she's always right, and that
Yes.
seems to be the case. No, it happened. It happened during COVID. I know that was a tough year for a lot of people, but it got us to come back to our hometown in Logan, and we just connected, and it was the perfect time for both of us. And I said this in my vows, and I guess I'll share it publicly, but it was like I looked at my life, and I guess at times I had a victim mindset. Where go, why me? Why this? What's going on here? God, and when she came into my life, it was like everything had been answered. It was like, oh, all that experience that I had, all those tough times, high times, it was all for her, and coming into my life and being the biggest missing piece. And she makes me want to be a better man, and brings out the best of me. So truly grateful for her. Yeah. She inspired a lot of this. When we first started dating, I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do. And I just had better energy. I had all these creative thoughts, ideas, and I think a lot of it is just because of the headspace. And my biggest thing with her is, and that we both feel, is we're just ourselves. We don't have to be anybody. We're not trying to please the other. We're comfortable in our own skins. And anyways.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that's wisdom, and you're just fresh out of the gate. So did you guys know each other in high school?
Yeah, she was a few years younger, so I always joke that she had to hit puberty before we started dating. So it would have been a little weird, but anyways, and I'm glad I didn't really know her then, because I wouldn't have been ready for her. I wouldn't have been mature enough for her. We both had to go through some life experiences that I think made us appreciate the relationship a little bit more.
Oh,
So
that's great.
yeah.
I'm happy for you.
Well,
Well,
thank you.
yeah, this is great. So if we look at a young man coming in, and I think the thing that you bring is you've got this depth of masculinity that's an appropriate use of masculinity. I think it's gotten beat up in our society, and for good reasons. A lot of men have kind of abused their masculinity, and they've gotten detached from it. But I think one of the things you create in your community is this healthy expression of masculinity. But let's talk about what it looks like as people bring their kids or grandkids into your training program.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point that, it's right now it's catered towards young men because I don't think there's enough resources for young men to say, hey, this is what it looks like to be a man, or in a sense. And I'm not saying that with me. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I have people on that are really good influences that show that masculinity in a positive way that can be, kind of the warrior on the field, but also be vulnerable off of it as well and be their full authentic self. So that's kind of the people that we're trying to bring within the community. What it would look like is they'd sign up, and there's a 12-week program at the beginning. We want to be able to teach these kids from the ground up in a sequential order. We don't want mom and dad going on YouTube trying to figure out these different things. So we have two programs. One's called Youth Football Mindset. They're going to get some football school, and then they're going to get mind strength. So with football school, we're going to teach them all the X's and O's that they could ever need or want. Hey, what's the A gap? Where's the offensive hole numbering system? Who's the Sam linebacker? All these different things that a kid should know. I was just at a university last week, and the coach asked him, what's a one technique to the quarterbacks in college? And they didn't know. And we're going to be teaching these young kids this type of stuff. And then after each football school, they'll have a little football school assessment to make sure that they're understanding the concepts. It's really fun. We've got some still shot photos of when I was playing at Wazoo, so they get some game footage of it, and it's real interactive. And then from our mind strength standpoint, same thing. It's a 12-week course. Each week there's going to be new content dripped out, and then after the 12-week course, we're going to have ongoing coaching. They can access their library, but ongoing coaching, it'd be like somebody like yourself potentially coming in and teaching a little bit about nutrition. We've got the podcast that they can access. We call it Lessons from the Legends. We've got NFL players, coaches, sports psychologists, NFL agents, just people that are in a position that they've seen a lot of high performance, they've seen a lot of good, they've seen a lot of bad through their own experiences, and just trying to give these kids a positive influence and be a positive role model. There's so much out there that a kid can get, he can consume his time with TikTok. Especially right now, it's so divisive. We just want to be able to provide a community for kids to have a positive role model, learn from the lessons, and hopefully apply them. And I think one of the biggest important things too, within the mind strength, I'm a big believer that knowledge isn't power. Craig taught me this. He's like, knowledge isn't power. It's the application of knowledge that is. So everything that we have within our mind strength program, and really our program in general, we wanted them to be able to apply it. They've got to know the why. They've got to know the how also of how to apply it. Because, so many times I hear these motivational speakers or something. Like there was a guy last week at the university. Okay, I feel inspired. What do I do now? What's the next step? And I think that's kind of the missing element. I think that's the secret sauce to what we've got going.
Man, I love that. And Mary, good to have you on. She just asked, what's the youngest age that can sign up for your program?
Yeah, right now we've got it catered 8 to 13. That's kind of about the sweet spot. But honestly, parents, you could sign them up if it's too much for them in terms of the mind strength, they're not grasping it. You can cancel anytime. So I don't want to put an age limit. That's just because, hey, you need something on the website to kind of guide. But you could sign up as young as you want if they feel like they're grasping it and they're learning it and they're having fun. Even the podcast itself, it's just great to be able to hear from, these people that are where these young kids probably want to be.
Yeah. And I think if you look at the disadvantage of if kids don't do this, I mean, one of the most complicated things for me when I played football, I started in sixth grade. I finally was able to get out of farm work, and my dad's like, all right, I guess I'll let you play football. So but all my friends had been playing like little league, and so they knew all the plays. I was clueless. I didn't know red, blue, and all these numbers are being called. So I see that as being a huge advantage that kids could have, just the mental game of football, because it's very complicated. Like you said, in basketball, you can kind of just dribble the ball down and shoot it and take over the game and be a ball hog. And but in football, it just doesn't work that way. So it's a lot more of a team sport. But what are some of the problems it solves for these kids?
Say that again.
What are some of the big problems it solves for these kids?
Well, I think it occupies the space in terms of some positivity for them. I think that, like I said, you're not learning this stuff in school. You're not learning it in practice. You're not you got a parent that probably never learned this stuff either, teaching these kids, and we want to be able to provide all the stuff that I learned, all the stuff that our coaches have learned, because we got a really good team, and just give these kids the information, and they can use it how they want, and just so they have it, because otherwise you got to go. You get out of high school and you go to college, and maybe you're a little bit lost, and then you go try to find these self-help books and these positive books or whatever. And we don't want that to be the end for them. We want them to start at a young age, and hopefully, one of the big companies or charities that we sponsor is called Linsky's Hope. And my old teammate Tyler Linsky unfortunately took his life when he was in college, and we aim to give 5% of our revenue to those guys and their mission. They go talk to these student athletes on college campuses. But the point I'm trying to make is why I wanted to start this whole thing, and maybe I'll get a little emotional here, but first it was, I wanted to make a difference. And okay, I'm not a psychologist. I can't talk about mental health. So what can I talk about? I can talk about my experience with Craig and sports performance, but I think that ties over into off the field as well. And that's why I really try to, hammer that point home, because it's almost like learning how to change a tire before you actually need to change a tire if you're dealing with mental health. Maybe if you have these skills in your toolbox, you can be able to whip them out and utilize them a little bit more and not get to that point. And so this is kind of my way of like tipping my cap to Tyler in a sense through the things that I know, and hopefully make a difference, just like his parents are doing right now. Slaving away. I mean, they're going to college campus each week trying to just give their message about, hey, it's okay to ask for help. And I just want to create a community within kids. Hey, here's some mental skills. I can't call them, mental health, but it's mental skills that can help on the field and also off of it.
Man, that's powerful. And that was so tragic with Tyler. I mean, devastating, but the beautiful thing you're doing with that is you're using that emotional energy and actually saying, hey, how many lives can you save if kids actually have these tools? Because he felt like there was no future for him. And it's just tragic.
Yeah,
We could all see the future in him, except himself.
absolutely. And just, listening to his parents' story, it just brought up all those emotions for me again. It's like, man, what could I have done? That's always the thing with suicide.
Yeah.
You always look to yourself, what could you have done? And that's the community aspect as well that we want to create online. Like you're doing the webinars, we're going to do monthly webinars as well. It's just create some community,
Yeah.
and we're going to do some live coaching, some Q&As, have some people on, but we just want these kids to know, hey, we love them, we care about them. And, obviously we want to provide them with some great skills that they can perform at a top level, but also have a meaningful life, and that, feel comfortable in their own skin. I think that's one of the greatest things. For me, I didn't at a young age. I always felt, insecure all the time. I always cared about what people thought of me, and not like I don't have those issues today, but I handle them better.
Wow. Well, and that's the thing is, on the surface, you look nice, cool, calm, collected, even, when I met you when you're 9 or 10. But we don't realize the struggle that people go through no matter what level they're at in life. And so I think these are tools for kids to have to bring them into their future that will make it so much more meaningful. I read a book called Inner Athlete by Dan Millman when I was 13. Have you heard of that book, Luke?
No, but I got to read it.
He is an Olympic trampolinist, and he just had the coolest way of looking at things. And I was obviously not a professional athlete by any means. I just wanted to make the team so I could get out of farm work. But, and I had fun, it was a cool time to hang out with friends and have community. But the book Inner Athlete actually, he taught me about visualization and really looking at the future, because he'd have to imagine himself doing all these crazy flips on a trampoline. And so he'd have to basically see his future, but it really helped me capture a mindset where I'm getting my breathing to calm down my anxiety. I don't know if you guys teach that in
Yeah.
yours.
Well, if I can just hop in real quick, that
Yes.
those are two of my favorite things that you just talked about. We talk about the 4-4-4 breathing, which
Okay.
I used before, these big game winning drives and stuff. And simply learning how to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds. So we just teach these kids like, hey, what happens to your breath when you're scared, nervous, right? It shortens and quickens. What happens when you're asleep and you're relaxed? They're long, deep, and slow. So if we teach them, which is how to control something, right? Control the controllable, and controlling our
Yeah.
breath is one of the biggest things where we can get ourselves in a better physiological state to be able to handle the pressures. And this is what we say, like after the thing, it's like, if you're nervous on the field, you can do this. You're nervous in the classroom, you can do this. You're scared whenever, you can focus on your breath and hopefully be able to get yourself into a better state. And we do it with them. We do a little guided thing, because I always like, why does Calm work? Why does Headspace work? Because it's guided, it's with them. A lot of people, they don't know how to do certain things. So we want to be able to give them a nice road path and have them experience it. And then when it comes to visualization, this is kind of the sequential order. Okay, well, let's learn how to breathe first. Then before we get in our visualization, we're going to get in that good breath work. We're going to be able to get in that good relaxed state. Then we're going to start visualizing the things that we want. We take them through a guided visualization. We've got some great crowd noise. It's pretty fun. Every time I listen to it, I always get the goosebumps of like coming out of the tunnel. And then, you get the nerves, the game stress and nerves. Well, what do you do during that time? Hey, let's go back to our breath. Let's get down here. Let's get relaxed. Let's focus on the things we can control. And so it's a really fun thing. I mean, I work a lot, but I'm really not working, just like you do. You really enjoy it. It's been fun building it. I really wish I would have had this when I was younger. It would have saved me a lot
Right.
of money not having to pay Craig so much, but
Well, I'm looking at this. I'm like, I wish I had this when I was younger. Oh, wait, we didn't have the internet when I was younger. So,
no, yeah, you couldn't do
and
it.
so this is the beautiful thing is not only have you allowed yourself, an NFL quarterback, but not only that, you're just a good human, and you're a dude that's always had sound principles, no matter how much chaos was going on around you in the personal life or with your football teams. And so I think, just for those of you who are listening to this, and I know some of you are already getting your grandkids signed up, but this is a real gift that Luke is offering the community, and it's really a mentorship that can be had no matter where you're at in the planet. We have a lot of listeners, I mean, in virtually every country right now. And so no matter where you're at, you have access to a world-class human being and a world-class athlete. So this is a real gift, and I appreciate you putting that on. Um,
Well, thank
so
you.
so if you looked at, I love that box breathing, by the way, when you're going down the field and I mean, I think that is just magical. Are there a couple more things you could share with us that would be like some tips that could get kids excited who, or some advice that maybe their parents or grandparents could give them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the exciting part is, do they want to hear from guys that they see play on Sundays? Those are the types of conversations we're going to be having. And these guys are going to be able to get vulnerable and open up. So they get to see more than just kind of the athlete that they always get to see. And really, what I try to do in the podcast, just like you do, say they bring a point up. Hey, that's what we talk about in week 4 right here. Right. And I would say one of the biggest things that I think would be great from a parent standpoint, we talk about the core 5, right? Everyone talks about the 5 closest people to hang out with. We talk about a core 5. Now, do people really analyze it, and do they have a system to be able to check how they feel around these certain people and the decisions that they make, and how the influences that these people have? What we've got is we've got a little cool little box that goes through questions and asks, hey, circle yes or no, and then reevaluate at the end. You think that you should be spending more or less time with these types of people? And that would be great for a kid to know. And I even do it with myself
Wow.
right now. It's like, hey, okay, here are the 5 closest people I'm hanging out with. Okay, I go through my 6 questions or my 5 questions, and it's real simple and easy, and I know the answer. And even at a young age, I think kids will intuitively know, hey, I probably shouldn't be spending that much time with so and so, or I should be spending more time with so and so because I act better. I'm my better self. Just like I said with my wife, she brings the best out of me. There are other people in my life that have been negative influences in my life, and you know what? I have to make a hard decision and not be around them as much. It's not like you're not friends with them, but you can't let them be in that inner core 5. So I think that's one of the biggest things. It's like people talk about, hey, the 5 closest people, that's who you're going to become. But really, how can you evaluate that? And that's just the application portion. We want to be able to give these kids a seamless process. Here you go, evaluate it, learn the importance of it, and then make a change, make a difference, or keep being with those people if they're positive.
Right. Wow, that's powerful because if you can think of this, you're giving kids social skills that they can use when they're in their 40s, their 50s, I mean, it never changes because sometimes you do need to let relationships go if you want to move to the next level in your life. If you really want to, transform yourself, man, unfortunately, and some of these relationships are family too, by the way. So
Absolutely. I mean, just like when I went to Washington State, there were people, when I started succeeding, there were people that were trying to pull me down because they were uncomfortable with my success. They were uncomfortable with me getting out of that realm, uh, next tier. And I'm even finding it with what I'm doing now. There are some people that are still trying to pull me down. So it's the same thing. It's no different, right? If you want to continue to grow, you need people that are going on the same path with you. Just like if you're trying to have a great diet and you got roommates that are constantly bringing McDonald's, all these different things, it's going to be a whole lot harder for you to be on track, on pace, to be able to do what you want to do. So,
yeah, it's so true, and I think we don't give that enough credit, and to have kids have that capability. So, I mean, the program just sounds so holistic, and not only that, but it gives kids access to people who are so influential. I mean, you yourself are incredibly influential, and then as you bring in other superstars, and the kids start realizing, like, oh, actually, Luke is just a human. I thought he was a superhero, and he's just like someone I could never aspire to be. Like you looked at Tom Brady. I know he's been kind of a role model for you
yeah.
as you've developed your career. But the difference between you and most kids is you actually said, I'm going to do all the things Tom Brady's doing so I can get to his level, versus Tom Brady's a one-off. He can only do that because he has genetics and he had this certain dad that taught him in a certain, I mean, what do you see? What do you think on that concept with kids?
Well, I loved one of the things I always appreciate about Tom Brady is that, he never made it seem like nobody could do it. He always said, hey, I'm just an average athlete, really below average in a sense, was what he always used to joke about. And I would eat up his YouTube stuff and just try to model myself after him. And probably so much so that I manifested being the same draft pick as him,
Right.
starting at the same time. I mean, it was a weird thing I saw back. It was like the side by side profile. And it was like all the similarities that Tom Brady and I had. And then, side by side, it was like, wow, that's kind of weird. I must have like just been, anyways. But and unfortunately, the NFL thing didn't work out quite what it did for him. But I think what I'm excited about is it's just like people in his position where we actually have a program for them where they're not going through YouTube, where they're not guessing as how to get it done. There's a program for them. They will be able to understand and have these 12 core principles that they can build upon. And that's the cool thing about the ongoing coaching is like, hey, say a kid wants to learn about, like I said, nutrition, for instance. I'm going to go try to get Regan Archibald on there and be able to have him come and speak about some things that kids can implement. So this program, yes, there's the core essence of it, which I think is what I'm most fired up about. They can have a core understanding, and then after we can build and we can go into intricacies of certain, even with football school. I know it's we give the basic information, and then from a quarterback position, hey, we're going to go over protections. We're going to go dive into the deeper stuff with mind strength. Maybe we're going to dive into a little deeper topic and get more serious about certain things. So it's kind of an overall, like I said, overall understanding, get the foundation right, and then we can start building and get the fine details as we go. So that's what I love about it. It's like constantly evolving, it's like a living organism in a sense where we can direct it the way we want to. So anyways, the more people we get on there, the more feedback we get, the better product it's going to be.
Man, I love that. Well, this has been phenomenal, Luke, and really appreciate you taking the time. I know you probably did your evaluation on your 5 core, so hopefully this fits with that model.
you
Just
you know what? You guys will be in there here pretty soon. I
oh,
think
great,
so.
good.
I got to get back coming there.
Yeah, please come on in. But go to Luke's website. It's 4 as in the number 4, and that's always been Luke's number. Number 4 qbtraining.com. And we've provided links in the show notes. And don't hesitate on this. If you enjoyed the conversation, share this with your maybe your kids who have kids who want to be quarterbacks or just great humans. I think this is just a timeless opportunity that you guys have. So, Luke, any final words or places where you'd like people to go directly to learn more about you?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I would just say, one, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. This is fun. This is actually my first podcast I've ever done. I've gotten invited to go do a lot, but they just never seemed like they were in alignment with who I am. And so, anyways, I appreciate you having me
Awesome.
on.
You did
Um,
phenomenal.
well, thanks. And then two, we have a blog on our website. So if you guys just want to learn more information about kind of what we're doing, we have some fun things out there, some more serious things about there, and they kind of range from all over the place. And then lastly, I know it says for QB training. We do all youth sports, our all youth football positions. It's not just quarterbacks. So it's just QB because I was a quarterback, probably bad branding on that part. But anyways.
That's great. Awesome. Okay, so get your aspiring football players out there and get them some really amazing training. Thanks so much, Luke, and we really appreciate everyone in the community here. We will be back same time next week. Love you guys. Thanks again, Luke.
Hey, thank you. See you guys.
Bye-bye.